Babulali, is it okay? Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
In Israel now we have a special situation with the missiles coming many places in Israel and kind of a war with Gaza.
Okay. But we are gone through in the newspaper. In newspaper also we have seen some problems, some war problem is going on there.
Yeah. So just that you would know.
You people are in safe place or?
For us, yes, because we are in a small place near, not far from Gaza and Ashkelon, but most of the missiles don't come where I live. It goes to the bigger city. So we hear everything, but it is safe here, yeah, relatively.
Tougher time, huh?
Basically, the basic problems, I am all right, you are not all right. You are wrong. I am right, you are wrong. That's the basic problem.
Of course, yes.
Is that the topic today, yeah?
Do you have not fixed any topic? At any topic you can go on.
לניר, אתה יכול לתרגם מה שהוא אמר? לא הבנתי. Can you translate? לניר, can you translate?
Yes, of course.
Okay, thank you. I didn't understand.
אני דיברתי קצת עם שרי בגבת על העניין של הטילים שנוחתים לנו פה, והוא שאל אם איפה שאנחנו נמצאים זה בטוח, אמרתי לו כן,
זה הבנתי. כן, אבל מה הוא אמר?
אז הוא אמר, כרגיל זה היה בעיה הבסיסית של אני צודק ואתה טועה.
אוקיי. אוקיי.
שכל אחד חושב שהוא הצודק.
כן, ברור.
But the basic understanding for all our religion must be, I do not know, I don't know anything. I don't know anything is the real secret of all religion. But all religion says, I know everything, the other do not know, I alone know everything. This is the thing everybody is trying to propagate. But really, the real meaning of all religion must be, I do not know, I don't know anything. That means then only we have to submit to the reality. But when we think I know everything, then we take everything under our control. That is the problem of fighting, problem of struggle.
אז שרי בגבת אומר שהבעיה, ההבנה הבסיסית של כל הדתות הייתה אמורה להיות, אני לא יודע. אני באמת לא יודע, אנחנו לא יודעים. להתחיל מאי הידיעה. אבל במציאות, כל הדתות הן אומרות, אני יודע ואתם לא יודעים. ואני אספר לכם מהי האמת. וזאת הבעיה הבסיסית שלנו. Yes, I translated.
Okay.
אנחנו צריכים ללמוד הרבה מהודו כדי להתגבר על המצב הזה.
Rita is saying that we have to learn from India in order to overcome this situation with the Arabs.
What no from India?
To learn this approach of not knowing.
So not from India, even India itself is the same. So wherever the religion, the basic meaning of religion is submitting to God or submitting to reality. But we are not ready to submit to reality. We have to take everything under our control. But basically, devotion is Devotion is submission. All devotion means submission, but we are not ready to submit. In the name of God, we try to uphold our God against other God. That's the problem. That's the basic problem.
Okay. So Sri Bagavath is saying that even in India, the situation is the same. שרי בגבת אומר שגם בהודו המצב הוא אותו דבר. זה לא שבהודו הם יודעים משהו יותר טוב, גם שם הדתות חושבות שהם יודעים יותר טוב מהאחרים. מבחינת שרי בגבת המשמעות האמיתית של דת היא כניעה או לרצון של האל או למציאות כפי שהיא. אבל מה שרוב הדתות עושות זה במקום להיכנע לרגע הזה כמו שהוא, או להיכנע לרצון של האל, הן לוקחות את סט אמונות שלהם ומנסות לכפות אותו, או בעזרתו להתנגח בדתות אחרות. ככה שאין שם כניעה אמיתית ואין שם קבלה של הרגע הזה, של המציאות, כפי שהיא. That's it.
Okay.
It's not only religious, it's people, human beings. Always, first of all, you blame the other one. If there is a car accident, I was the best driver. The other one is to be blamed, and it's not only religious. It's nature of human beings. Unfortunately,
nature of the human being.
Yes.
But this nature reflects in religion also. Our nature reflects in religion.
No doubt, no doubt.
So our teaching is also psychologically we don't have anything to attain. So by coming to the conclusion that there is no fixed place to attain, fixed place to reach, if you understand like this, that is we call the enlightenment, and thereby we give freedom to the natural functioning of our mind, that we know, that we name it as liberation. So the first part, when we have the mind in the understanding and in the liberation, everything is okay. But afterwards, we have to transact with the other people, transact with the world. Then only we have to divide the first part and second part. And the first part is the natural happening of our mind. The second part is the doing part. So the second part has duty only to the worldly and the activities of the world. And the first part must be given total freedom. In this way, the second part has to give total freedom to the first part. The first part, that is the happening part. Then only everything will be all right. So the secondary part submit itself to the first part. So its duty is to do what is necessary in the external world, what is necessary, what is for the day-to-day life. It has to go along with the necessary things. But in the first part is natural part. Some good thing may happen, bad thing may happen, but everything is divine, everything is natural. So it is a godly one, and it is a divine one. We should not criticize or condemn. So there is no division between the one religion and other religion. Everybody is having the same mind, the same functioning of mind. The first part is always first part in all religion. The second part is always one with all religious people. Everybody is one. everybody is same. Basic function of our mind is same. So here, the second part has to understand its limitation, and it has to give total freedom, total submission to the first part. Then only the first part will rule. If the first part takes the power, the second part will be functioning just like a some tool, and so just like a tool for our work. In the olden days, the superior one is known as king, the advisory persons are considered as ministers. So our secondary part is the minister and the first part is the king. So the first part is the total, and the second part is only a partial one, and the second part has to give total liberation and total submission to the first part, and then the first part and second part will jointly deal with everything in a good manner. Then that is then good thing alone will happen. Nothing bad will happen. So then only everything will be all right. Lani, you can
translate. Shri Bagavath, when sometimes you use the word first part as the movement of emotions, and sometimes you use the first part to indicate the true nature, awareness or consciousness. So what do you mean now by first part?
So what is happening naturally? It may be consciousness, it may be awareness, it may be sensitivity, it may be some emotions, it may be thought. Whatever comes spontaneously is the first part.
So
the second part is the manual doing, manual thinking, manual planning. The manual doing is the second part. The natural happening is the first part. In the first part, everything may happen. Our thought may happen, our emotions may happen, our awareness may happen, unplanned. What all happening unplanned, undesigned. What all happening naturally, everything covers the first part.
You mean like like the mind of a child, of a small child?
Just like this.
Okay.
Not only child, it may be matured child. Matured person also. Yeah. The same thing is going on in the matured person also. Some whatever, but without any planning, whatever happening, it is in the first part.
Okay.
Okay.
אז מה ששרי בגבת אומר זה שמזכיר לנו שוב את המבנה של החלק הראשון והחלק השני של הנפש של האדם. אז החלק הראשון הוא החלק הספונטני, זה מה שקורה באופן טבעי. למשל, מישהו כועס עלינו ואנחנו נעלבים. זה החלק הראשון. החלק השני זה החלק שמתכנן מה לעשות עם הכעס הזה, והאם לצעוק או איך לנקום באותו אחד שהעליב אותנו. זה כבר החלק השני. כאשר אנחנו מבינים שאנחנו לא יכולים למצוא שום מצב סטטי עבור החלק הראשון. זאת אומרת שאני לא יכול לצפות שאני כל הזמן ירגיש טוב, למשל. החלק הראשון הוא תמיד יהיה בתנועה בהתאם לנסיבות. אז ההערה לפי שרי בגבת זה ההבנה שבחלק הראשון אנחנו לעולם לא נוכל למצוא קביעות, אין קביעות שם. יש שם תנועה מרגע לרגע של מחשבות, רגשות, תחושות, שקט, שלווה, שנאה, קנאה, כל הקשת האינסופית שבני האדם חווים. כל זה יכול לקרות בחלק הראשון. החלק השני זה החלק שמנסה לנהל את העניינים. זה החלק שמנסה להכתיב ולנסות לקבע איזשהו מצב ספציפי. אבל ההערה לפי שרי בגבת זה ההבנה שאין מצב קבוע. הנפש לעולם לא תוכל להגיע לאיזשהו מצב קבוע של שקט או שלווה או שלום. זה תמיד יהיה תנועה אינסופית. החלק השני בתוכנו, שזה האינטלקט, שזה החלק שמתפתח יותר מאוחר בחיים של בן אדם, שמנסה לשלוט, הוא צריך להבין שאין לו מקום להתערב בעולם הפנימי, ולהפנות את כל הכוחות שלו ואת כל החוכמה שלו להתנהלות בעולם החיצוני. בכתובים העתיקים של הודו, החלק הראשון מתואר כמלך, והחלק השני מתואר כשר, שהוא אמור למלא את הפקודות של המלך. אבל הוא לא אמור להתערב למלך ולהכתיב לו מה לעשות. אם זה מתנהל כך, שהשר יודע את מקומו והמלך יודע את מקומו, אז העניינים מסתדרים על הצד הטוב ביותר. אבל כאשר השר מתחיל להתערב בעניינים הפנימיים, כאשר השר מנסה להכתיב למלך מה הוא צריך להיות ומה הוא לא צריך להיות, אז נוצר כאוס וסבל. כאשר האינטלקט מתחיל להגיד לרגשות אם הם צריכים להרגיש ככה או ככה ומה צריך להיות, ומנסה לקבע איזשהו מצב פסיכולוגי, איזשהו מצב נפשי, איזשהו מצב רוחני, אז מתחילות כל הצרות. החלק הראשון צריך להיות חופשי לחלוטין, והחלק השני צריך לנהל את העניינים בחוץ, להפנות את הכוח שלו לענייני העולם. אוקיי, שרי בגבת.
Okay.
Would you say that the first part is a little bit, if you take the female and male, like the active and the passive, would you say that the inner part is more feminine side and the second part is more masculine side, or wouldn't you say that?
But
like Shiva and Shakti, something like that?
it can be considered like this, but the second part is taking the role as the muscular one, manly one, and it has to, after its understanding, it has to submit to the first part. Then only it will be all right. So it takes the role of a doer, the manly one, but it has to submit. Then only everything all right. So after the understanding, it has to become a feminine. Then only it will be all right. Naturally, it takes the role of a male, but afterwards, after understanding, it has to become the female. Then only it has to submit.
Mm-hmm. Okay, then yes, it's a tricky one, maybe. Yes, I understand.
So the first part must be free. There should not be any question. Whatever it may be, good thing, bad thing, everything will come. So it will be refined. So in spiritual literatures, we are dividing our mind as manam, buddhi, chitta, ahankara. Chitta, mind and intellect is buddhi. The oscillating mind is mind, and the character is known as chitta. And the chitta is the root cause for all our action. So all our action will be according to our chitta. That is our character. Our character. So the character and the mind will join together, and everything it will produce some good thing, bad thing. Everything may come in the first part, where the mind and chitta, that's our character and mind joins together, and it functions like that. But when in course of time, some change will be there, where some good thing alone will come. From the in the beginning, it may look some absurd thing it may produce, but in course of time, everything will be all right. Everything will be soft and sweet, and you need not afraid of the first part, afraid of giving liberation to the first part. Everything will be all right.
Mm-hmm. And many spiritual traditions emphasize the practice of concentration, the practice of one pointedness, like being able to focus your attention for a certain amount of time on one object. Maybe it's the breath, maybe it's the awareness, maybe it's God or anything else. Why do this tradition insist on this being one of the first steps? And
but
it gives you anything in regarding the understanding?
So it will give you some strength to your mind, strength to the functioning of our mind. It is not. It is quite okay. So everything is good. Just it is a foundation work. It is a foundation work of a building, but it is not the building. The foundation. It is a foundation work. It is good. It is good.
But does one must go through these practices in order to reach the understanding?
But in the beginning, everything is good. But because if in the beginning, if we speak something, they cannot understand. So in course of time, everything they can develop the capacity of understanding. So in the beginning, we can give all such kind of practice. Everything is good.
Yes, but the question is it necessary to go through these practices in order to come to the understanding, or is it not necessary?
So if he is matured enough in some way or other, this practice is not necessary. But most of the persons are not matured, so practice may be necessary. This practice of concentration may be necessary.
What do you mean when you say mature?
Because it may be he may be a children, he may be he may not have any knowledge about spiritual world. So just like to begin something, if he is going here and there and meeting many problems within his life, so meeting many problems in his life is a kind of maturity. So so anyhow he has some experience. So he has some experience to deal with himself. So he has the capacity to deal with himself. So he developed some capacity for himself. Afterwards, he can directly understand the functioning of mind. Actually, we have to understand the functioning of a mind. That is the main thing. For that, just the practice of concentration is a side support. It is not the main one.
Okay. So I will translate what you said.
Okay.
אז בהתחלה אני שאלתי את שרי בגבת לגבי אם אפשר להתייחס לחלק הראשון בתור החלק הנשי, ולחלק השני בתור החלק הגברי. אז שרי בגבת אמר שאפשר להתייחס לזה ככה, אבל צריך להבין שהחלק הגברי, החלק השני, הוא צריך להיכנע בפני החלק הנשי. זאת אומרת, הוא החלק האקטיבי, אבל הוא צריך לתת חופש מוחלט לחלק הנשי, הפנימי, הראשוני. זה קצת מבלבל את כל הסיפור, אז אני קצת יורד מזה, מלתאר את זה ככה, אבל עניין אותי לשמוע מה שרי בגבת חושב על זה. בכל מקרה אתם מבינים את הנקודה, שהחלק הראשון זה החלק הספונטני, זה מה שקורה. והחלק השני זה החלק שאנחנו עושים במודע, אנחנו מנסים לשלוט. החלק הזה צריך להיות מופנה לעולם החיצוני. לאחר מכן שאלתי את שרי בגבת לגבי העניין שרוב המסורות הרוחניות, לא משנה מאיפה הם בעולם, הן מלמדות בהתחלה את יכולת הריכוז. זאת אומרת, איך למקד את התודעה בדבר אחד, באלוהים, במנטרה, בנשימה, בתודעה, אבל איך לרכז את התודעה בדבר אחד למשך זמן מסוים. ושאלתי את שרי בגבת, האם יש קשר בין התרגול הזה לבין ההבנה שהוא מדבר עליה? אז שרי בגבת אמר אם האדם הוא בוגר מספיק, הוא לא צריך לעבור דרך התרגול הזה, אבל לאנשים שלא בילו עדיין מספיק זמן בעולם הרוחני, ולאנשים שלא נתקלו במספיק בעיות בחיים שלהם, ולא היה להם את ההזדמנות להתמודד עם עצמם באופן עמוק, אז תרגולים מהסוג הזה יעזרו. אבל באופן כללי זה אומר שזה עזר, זה כמו קביים, זה לא הדבר העיקרי. זה לא הדבר העיקרי. That's it, שרי בגבת.
Okay. If anybody else wants to say anything, you can share with them.
אם מישהו רוצה לשאול משהו, זה הזמן. לחלוק משהו, איזושהי הבנה שיש לו.
So one question.
Okay.
So this submission
Hmm.
to the first part, is it an evolution?
Can be taken as evolution.
So it's not like there is one point where you submit all the time. From that point on, you submit all the time. It's just that slowly you submit more and more.
But if you understand, the understanding is enough. The understanding will bring submission. We need not submit. We do not do it as a work. If you understand, everything will be all right. Already if the understanding is going on, the submission will be naturally happen.
But understanding is of the second part, and the understanding of the second part.
Oh, understanding by the second part.
Yes, but you know, even in life, okay, I understand that doing something is bad for me. I always forget and do it again and again, and over time I stop doing it. So there is no real so understanding which is permanent is not really, never happens. Understanding which is permanent, you know, maybe if I touch the fire, then I understand, you know, once and for all. But in most cases, I can understand that submission needs to happen, so I submit, but then I forget and start my old habit, and then I remember again, and then, so it's like evolutionary. Or is there a point in time that you say, the understanding comes to maturity that from now on, there is no need to remember because it's just natural?
So where the forget happening? The forget happening in the first part. It is not the part of the second. Forgetting happens related to the first part. Forgetting does not belong to the second part. We think the second part forgets. Actually, the forgetting is belong to the first part. We need not worry about the forgetting.
But there is a mechanism.
Whenever you remind, then only the second part is functioning. Otherwise, when you forget, the first part alone is going on. We have to take it.
Okay, but the
you
first
need not worry about need not worry about the first part.
The first part is triggering action on the second part, and the action could be suffering. The action could be trying to deal with this first part. The action, there is a trigger, right? So if the second part understand that this trigger is something to avoid, or this trigger is something to ignore.
So actually, when the first part is functioning, there is no second part. Only the first part is there. So the first part does not have any instruction to the second part. When the first part is functioning, the first part alone is there. There is no second part. But when the second part is functioning, the second part considered itself to be the total, but actually, even though the second part is functioning, the first part is there. We cannot dismiss the first part at any time. Even when the second part is functioning, the first part is already there. But it takes a secondary role. When the second part is functioning, the first part becomes secondary. So here, the second part has to understand the first part alone is the primary one. Then only it has to submit. So in the second part need not correct the first part. So it has no duty to the first part. Second part, the duty of the second part is to external work. External work, the second part alone has to work.
Okay, and
okay,
thank you.
Okay. Lanir, you can translate the question and answer.
אוקיי, אז דני שאל את שרי בגבת בנוגע להבנה, האם ההבנה היא סוג מסוים של אבולוציה, של התפתחות. שרי בגבת ענה שכן, שאפשר להסתכל על זה כך. ואז דני המשיך ושאל האם יגיע רגע שבו ההבנה היא נעשית קבועה, ככה שאנחנו לא שוכחים יותר. ושרי בגבת אמר שהשכחה היא לא שייכת לחלק השני. זאת אומרת, כל העבודה שלנו נעשית בחלק השני, בחלק של האינטלקט. ואנחנו חושבים שאנחנו שוכחים, ולכן אנחנו מנסים לא לשכוח. אבל שבגבת אומר שהשכחה היא שייכת לחלק הראשון, הספונטני, ואנחנו לא צריכים לקחת על עצמנו שום דבר מהעבודה של החלק הראשון. החלק הראשון שוכח, אז הוא שוכח. כשאנחנו נזכרים, זה החלק השני כבר פועל. אז כל המאמץ שלנו וכל הכוונות שלנו צריכה להיות רק לגבי החלק הראשון. אז כשנזכרנו, אז זהו, נזכרנו, וזה החלק השני. אז כששכחנו, זה החלק הראשון. ולכן אנחנו לא צריכים לקחת אחריות על זה ששכחנו. ובסופו של דבר, החלק השני צריך להגיע למצב שבו הוא נכנע כלפי החלק הראשון. זאת אומרת, הוא מבין שאין לו שליטה למעשה על החלק הראשון. יש לו אשליה של שליטה, אבל אין לו שליטה אמיתית. והחלק הראשון, החלק הספונטני, החלק הראשוני, צריך לקבל את מלוא הבמה ולתת לו חופש מוחלט, להיות משהו. ברגע שזה קורה, החלק השני, החלק של האינטלקט, מוצא את הביטוי שלו ואת התפקיד שלו לטפל בעולם החיצוני. ואז לכל אחד מהחלקים יש את המקום שלו. החלק השני, האינטלקט, כל היכולות שלנו מופנות כלפי העולם החיצוני, והחלק הפנימי נותר חופשי, כמו של ילד, להרגיש, לחוות, לחשוב באופן ספונטני ופתוח, וזהו השחרור ששרי בגבת מדבר עליו. That's it.
Okay. So most of the spiritual practices aiming to separate the first part. So I must have a good emotion, good experience. So it is waste of energy. For the beginners only, they may practice some concentration work or anything, any practice. Thereby we can produce some good emotions, good feeling, good experience. Everything is for the beginners. But afterwards, we have to understand there is no good thing or bad thing in the first part of our mind, in the emotional part of our mind. Everything is good. So we have to develop ourselves to accept the totality of the first part, totally of the natural function of the mind. So we have to, first of all, we have to come to a conclusion, just like intellectual conclusion. Nothing is bad in the emotion, in the feeling, in experiences. Everything is good, everything is divine. So we need not attain anything in the form of mind. So that the intellectually we have to come to a conclusion. That is the first work. So then only we can give total freedom to the first part. Afterwards, we have to deal with the second part. The first part, what we have to, first of all, we have to understand what is the first part. So the natural functioning of our mind is the first part. So we have to understand. So all the spiritual practices deal with the first part. So for the beginners, it is okay. You can deal with the first part. You can correct the first part. You can shape yourself. Everything we can encourage. But afterwards, we have to understand. All effort to correct ourselves is correct, not good. We have to give a total freedom to the mind, total freedom to the first part. Then only everything will be all right. But afterwards, we can understand what is the functioning of the second part, the functioning part of our mind.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
שרי בגבת אומר שרוב התרגולים הרוחניים מכוונים לשנות את החלק הראשון, את החלק הספונטני, את החלק שנולדנו איתו, שלא נרגיש את זה ולא נחווה את ההוא, ושהמיינד שלנו לא יהיה כך או אחרת, שנוכל להרגיש טוב, שנשלוט במחשבות וכך הלאה וכך הלאה. והוא אומר שזה טוב בהתחלה, זה טוב בשביל אנשים שרק נכנסים לעולם הרוחני ומתחילים להתמודד ולחפש את הדרך לשחרור. לאחר מכן אנחנו נדרשים להגיע להבנה שכל מה שקורה בעולם הפנימי הוא בסדר, לא משנה מה קורה שם. ורק אז אנחנו יכולים להשתחרר. Bagavath, I want to ask something.
Okay, you can ask.
Okay. So most of the people, they want to control the first part. They want to shape the first part because they have the idea that if I'm not controlling the first part, then I will also behave in a manner, I will also speak words and behave in a manner that will be hurtful for myself and for my surrounding. And therefore they think I have to control the first part because the first part will dictate how I behave, what I will say, and then I can hurt people that I love. Then I can do things that are destructive for my health and for other people's health and so on. So they say this is the need in order to shape the first part in order that you will not do and say destructive things.
But all this question related to the second part of the mind. The first part of the mind, they are thinking that it is the first part, but actually it is the question related to the second part. The second part must have some regulation. The first part does not need any regulation. But in thinking that there is no, they are unable to differentiate the first part and second part, they take both into one. Then only they ask question like this. And most of the practices are producing some good emotions. When we creating some good emotion, bad emotion will not be there. So creating good emotion is the aim for the spiritual practice. So they do some practices, and by creating some good emotions, it is only for the beginners. Beginners, it is all right. But afterwards, the second part is concerned. For example, when I have in a given situation, in the first part, I have some anger upon the other person. Actually, when the anger comes, it is unconscious. Unconsciously, we are in anger. But in the split of the next second, then only we are conscious of the anger. So when we are conscious of anger, then we come to the second part of our mind. In the first part of the mind, the anger is there, but it is unconscious. But we do not know, there is no work. So whenever we have, even though we are having anger, after we are coming to the second part, so the conscious anger alone, it creates some problem. So unconscious anger will not create any problem. So when it creates some problem, when it creates any action in the external world, first of all, it comes in the second stage. Then it becomes a conscious anger. The unconscious anger will not create any problem. When it has to create any problem, when it creates any action, before that, it has to come to a conscious anger. Only because of conscious anger alone, we are doing some problem. So when the anger become a conscious, the capacity, the power of the anger will be very less. When it is unconscious, the anger and the power will be very great. But even though the power is very strong, it will not create any action in the external world. So only because it coming as the second part and as a conscious anger, then only we are deliberately we are doing something in the anger, then only we may multiply the anger. After the multiplication of anger, we may do some wrong and anything. But in the primary part, it comes as an unconscious part. The unconscious part does not have any action. But when before it come into action, it has to come to the conscious anger or conscious emotion. So all our restrictions, all our dealings, all our regulation must be in the second part alone. We need not worry about the first part. But the beginners do not know the classification of the first part and the second part. So they have to do something as just like doing something for the second part. They may practice, they can do any practice. All practices are good. So for the beginners. So we need not worry about the beginners. If we need any clarification, or if you don't need for clarification, you can translate.
Okay. So what you actually are saying, what I understand from what you're saying is that the first part is the spontaneous one. The second part is the doing part, is the action part. And people are not differentiating between the two. They don't know the distinction between the two. So they try to control the first part because they don't understand the distinction. So for a person who has this understanding, so anger may arise in a given situation, but then he would there would be no trying to control the anger or suppress it, but there will be and the second part will evaluate the situation and say, okay, this anger is here. Is it appropriate to use this anger in this given situation? And then it will act according to its intelligence, either going with the anger or not going with the anger and taking a different route in the given situation.
Okay.
Is this what you mean?
Yeah. Okay.
So, okay. So I will translate it.
Okay.
Okay. אז שרי בגבת אומר שכל התרגולים שאנחנו עושים הם תרגולים הרוחניים, המטרה שלהם היא ליצור אטמוספירה או רגשות נעימים בתוך עצמנו, על מנת שאנחנו חושבים שאם יהיה לנו רגשות נעימים בתוך עצמנו, אז אנחנו נפעל גם בצורה חיובית בחוץ, ונדבר בצורה חיובית, ולכן אנחנו עושים את כל המאמצים על מנת לשמור על אווירה טובה בתוך עצמנו. והוא אומר שזה מצוין עבור אנשים שמתחילים את הדרך הרוחנית. אבל לאנשים שהם כבר בדרך הרוחנית זמן מה, או שהגיעו לדרך הרוחנית כבר בשלים, אז ישנה ההבנה של מהו החלק הראשון ומהו החלק השני. החלק הראשון הוא בלתי נשלט. אף אחד לא יכול ליצור כל הזמן בתוך עצמו רגשות נעימים, זה בלתי אפשרי. ולכן אין צורך לשלוט בכלל בחלק הראשון, בחלק הספונטני. אז מה שקורה זה במצב נתון שהאדם שיש לו את ההבנה הזאת, אז נגיד הוא חווה כעס, ואז הוא לא מנסה לשלוט בכעס בשום צורה שהיא. אבל מצד שני הוא צריך לפעול, זה החלק השני. והחלק השני הזה, הוא צריך להיות מספיק אינטליגנטי לדעת האם אני הולך עם הכעס, כי הסיטואציה מתאימה שאני אבטא את הכעס עכשיו, או שאני לא הולך עם זה. כאן זה כבר האינטליגנציה הפנימית שלנו אמורה לבטא את עצמה, ולפעול בצורה שבה היא חושבת שתהיה הכי טובה למצב הנתון. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah, so one question.
Okay.
If I understand correctly, what you say that anything that is conscious is the second part.
The second part is the conscious part.
Okay, so we cannot be conscious of the first part.
We cannot. But the consciousness is hidden. The conscious in the first part itself, consciousness is there, but it is a hidden. So the sensitivity, it can be considered as a sensitivity. The conscious, most of the thing, even though it is it is a partially consciousness, it is not under control. It is a natural flow. The first part is a natural flow, but in the second part, we are conscious what we are doing. We know what you are doing, what we are having. So we are knowing about our emotion. But in this first part, most of the thing, it is unconscious. But it is very spur of the moment. In the next moment, we are conscious of that. Consciousness and unconsciousness comes one by one. So the very next moment, we can conscious of our unconscious happening. In the first moment, for example, all our emotion, without our knowledge, it comes. So after coming along, we know the arise of the consciousness, the arise of the emotions. So in this way, it is connected like this.
Okay, so emotion comes, then the second part is aware of it, and the role of the second part is not to do anything about it.
No, about the emotion.
Yeah. So it's like continuously going, and the second part role is just not to interfere with whatever comes from the first part.
Yeah. But you can make use of the emotion with related to the external situation. If it is suitable for the situation, we can make use of that.
Yes, but 90% of the time in the day, it's not like there is no real action in the outer world. Most of the time.
Yeah. Most of it may be unnecessary. So we need not worry about that.
Yeah.
But actually, the first part is the living part. The first part is the natural part. Whatever happens, everything happens. It has to go along with go through the first part. Whatever happens, everything has to go through the first part.
Right. And so the submission to the first part means that I don't have to do anything about what came from the first part. This is the submission. I mean,
okay. The very understanding is the submission.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Lanier, you can translate.
Okay. אז דני שאל את שרי בגבת בנוגע לטבע של ההבנה הזאת, לטבע של הכניעה, מה זה אומר להיכנע. ושרי בגבת אומר שעצם ההבנה של החלק השני, אין מה לעשות עם החלק הראשון. זאתי הכניעה. זאת אומרת, החלק השני, האינטלקט, אנחנו אפשר להגיד, מבינים שהרגשות שלנו והמחשבות והתחושות הם צריכים להיות בשחרור, הם צריכים להיות במצב של זרימה, מרגע לרגע ללא שום הפרעה. ואז זאת הקנייה שבעצם שבגבת מדבר עליה, וכל הדתות מדברות עליה, הקנייה בעצם לחלק הראשון, לחלק הספונטני, לזרימה הזאת מרגע לרגע של הרגשות שלנו. ההבנה היא הקנייה. That's it, Bagavath.
Okay. The first part can be considered as a spirit, as the spiritual, and the second part considered as the matter. And the first part can be considered as the flame, and the second part is considered as the smoke. And the first part is the real part, and the second part is the imaginary part, or the image, it's some image. And the first part is the sensitivity part. The sensitivity, we cannot be always without sensitivity. The sensitivity is always there. Even when this second part is going on, the sensitivity is there. The sensitivity is the first part. It is always there. So when we feel when the second part feels its submission, it is the secondary one, then the sensitivity takes the role. The sensitivity is somewhat developed. Though it can be considered as a spiritual development or not, it doesn't matter. But the sensitivity becomes important. The second part is only the doing part, what is necessary, what you are doing. But even though it is doing, the sensitivity is also there. That is the first part. That is the spiritual part, that is the divine part, that is the real flame. And that is also there. That is also going on. Even though the second part is functioning, the first part is also there. Okay.
Most of the approaches in spirituality, they make a division between a distinction between the awareness or the sensitivity, as you call it, and the thoughts, emotions, and sensations. But you seem to not to divide. You say the spontaneous part, including the sense, you give the same importance to the sensitivity and to the emotions, to the sensations, to the thoughts, the spontaneous one. You take it as one flow.
One flow.
While most spiritual teacher, they say there is something beyond. And this sensitivity is beyond everything. So
some undisturbed sensitivity. But I take everything as one.
Yeah, so you say the divine is not only like only the awareness or the sensitivity that is beyond everything, that is unmanifested, but also the manifested, the thoughts, the emotions, that it's all part of the divine. You say.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
So, like you say, the only problem is that we are interfering with the flow of the divine.
Yeah, that is the problem.
In the Hebrew, the Bible, in the beginning, the Adam and Eve, they were living in the heaven, but then the snake. advised them to eat from the fruits of good and bad. There was a tree, and now they ate from the fruits of good and bad, and now they know what is good and what is bad, and because of that, they have to live paradise. They have to go away.
They have.
So it is necessary for the external work. The second part has to function. What is good and bad? Then only it has to function correctly. So it is so, but at the same time, it has no power to question the first part. The second part has the duty to the external world, but it has no duty to the internal world. So in the internal world, the good and bad is bad. Everything is good. Everything is correct. The external world, good and bad is there. So we have to, but we are applying all the good and bad in the external world. The same way we apply the same rule to the internal world also, where we select good emotion, bad emotion. Actually all emotions are good. All the first part is always good. There is no bad. So it related to this your Adam and Eve concept also.
Yes. Okay. I will translate what you say.
Okay.
זה שרי בגבת, אני שאלתי את שרי בגבת לגבי זה שרוב הדתות הרוחניות, רוב המסורות הרוחניות, הן עושות ההפרדה בין הטבע האמיתי שלנו, שהוא בלתי ניתן לידיעה, לבין הביטויים שלו, שזה מחשבות, רגשות, תחושות. שרי בגבת לא עושה את ההפרדה הזאת, מבחינתו החלק האלוהי שבנו, הוא כולל את המודעות וכולל גם את כל החלק הנגלה, זאת אומרת מחשבות, רגשות, תחושות שבאים באופן ספונטני. מבחינת שרי בגבת, כל הזרימה הזאת הבלתי פוסקת של העולם הפנימי, של מחשבות, רגשות ותחושות, מה שהם לא יהיו, זה החלק הרוחני, זה החלק האלוהי שבנו, והבעיה היחידה היא שכביכול נוצר בנו החלק השני, החלק שמנסה להתערב ולשלוט ולהכתיב מה יקרה בחלק הראשון. וזה מבחינת שרי בגבת שורש הסבל האנושי, והחלק השני הזה שהוא אפשר להגיד אנחנו, או האני הלא אמיתי, או מי שאנחנו חושבים שאנחנו, צריך להבין שאין לו, או שהוא לא צריך להתערב שם. ואז בהבנה הזאת קורית בעצם סוג של כניעה כלפי העולם הפנימי. העולם הפנימי מקבל את הבמה להיות משהו, והחלק השני מפנה את המבט שלו כלפי העולם החיצוני, ושם הוא מנהל את ענייני היומיום. That's it.
Okay. If anybody wants any clarification on this point, or we can wind up today.
מישהו רוצה עוד איזושהי הבהרה לגבי הנקודה הזאת, או שאנחנו יכולים לסיים להיום?
Yes, maybe one short one. Sorry.
Okay. Oh, doesn't matter. You can go.
So what is the understanding of enlightenment? I mean, the realization. This is the second part. How can the second part realize if everything is happening in the first part?
So only because of our analyzation, because it happened, everything happens unconsciously. What in all emotions are coming, so only after the next moment alone we recognize something. So it is a natural thing. What all happening is in the first part. That alone is possible. The first part alone, the side, then only a fraction of second alone we recognize later. So the recognition of the happening is always comes later. So that is so the first part is always functioning in the first part. So it is if you look and inquire it, we can easily find out.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
So we'll give title as understanding of mind for happiness, yeah? Or liberation.
அது கூட நம்ம பேர கூட பேசிக்கிடுவோம், நம்ம முடிச்சுட்டு கூட
சரி.
என்ன டைட்டில் கொடுக்கலாம். Sorry, goodbye to all of you. We can meet next
Thank you.
time.
Thank you for all.
Thank you. חג שמח לכולם.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
ביי, תודה רבה.
Bye.
כולם.